Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear second year students, the English section in the Faculty of Commerce, Alexandria University. This is Muslim. I will continue what we already started last week. In the last lecture, we started chapter 5, it talks about motivation, and we mentioned that there are two groups of theories try to explain motivation. The first group called the content theories of motivation, like Abraham Maslow, the 5 levels of needs. Alderfer, he talked also about 3 levels of human needs. Herzberg talked about the 2-factor theory, the hygiene and motivating factors, and David McClelland talked about the 3 motives: the need for achievement, the need for power, and the need for affiliation. And these theories already covered in the last lectures. Today we'll talk about the next group, or the second group of theories that try to explain motivation, which are the process theories of motivation. As before, there are many process theories of motivation. First, the Victor Vroom theory, we called it expectancy theory of motivation. Adams, the equity theory, and Locke, the goal setting theory. What is common among all of these theories is they explain motivation as a process, not just a reflection, like the content theories of motivation. Content theories of motivation assume that motivation is just a reflection of, the human needs or motives. Here, these 3 theories explain motivation as a process. It takes time. The individual may go through different stages, as you will see in these theories. The first of this theory is the Vroom's expectancy theory. According to Vroom, motivation is a process governing the choices among alternate forms of voluntary activities. What does it mean here? As you see from the definition, motivation is a process, and it is a group of choices. People make some decisions before they start a behavior. For example, I trust that you should have made a decision to listen to this lecture. Before you decided to listen to this lecture, you should consider the 3 factors. The first factor is the probability of understanding. You asked yourself, if I listen to Alim Salam giving this lecture about motivation, am I going to understand the lecture? So you give this a value. What is the probability of understanding given that you will listen to the lecture? This is the first probability, maybe high or low. The second probability is given you understood the lecture. Does the lecture has anything to do with the final exam? To what extent understanding the lecture will lead to, success in the final exam? What is the probability that understanding the lecture will lead to high grades in the final exam? Also, this probability may be high or low. And the third factor you considered is the value of success. Is success important for you, for your life, for your family? If success is very important for you, then if success is very important, the probability that understanding the lecture will lead to higher grades is high, and also the probability of understanding the lectures given that you listened to it is high. Then most likely you will do what? You will listen to the lecture. Okay? But assume that you give the probability of understanding very low value, or it's zero. I will not go to understand the lectures, So if this probability is zero, most likely, you will do something else. You will not waste time watching or seeing or listening to this lecture. If you believe, yes, I will understand the lecture as soon as I will watch it, but there is nothing to do, the lecture has nothing to do with the final exam. Then also your decision will be not to listen to the lecture. Why wasting time? You can do anything else. If the probability of understanding is high, and the probability that the lecture will lead to better understanding and also will lead to a higher grades in the final exam, but success is not important for you. You come to university just to have good time with friends, and success doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you get your bachelor degree. If this is the case, also you'll not waste time listening to the lecture. So in order to listen to the lecture, you should have assigned a high probability of understanding, high probability that success depends on understanding the lecture, and also success is very valuable thing in your life. This is simply what the expectancy theory of motivation tries to tell us. Most behaviors are under a voluntary control. It is a matter of decisions of the individual and constantly are motivated. The example I made in mind, and according to the theory, there are three different relationships. The first relationship is here are the three relationships. The first relationship is the expected relationship between the individual effort and individual performance. The perceived probability of successful performance given effort. In our example, the perceived probability of understanding given listening to the lecture. This is the first relationship. In any workplace, the employee may give a probability that his effort will lead to performance. Okay, this is the first one. The second relationship describes, the relationship between performance and rewards. The perceived probability of receiving an outcome, reward given performance. In our example, the probability that understanding the lecture will lead to better performance, better or higher grades. This is the second relationship. The third one is the relationship between reward and goals. In our example, the value of success, the relationship between success and your personal goal. Is success one of your personal goals? Is success valuable for your life, for your family, for yourself? Then if this three relationship has a value, positive value, then most likely the behavior will take place. And these are the three relationships. The first one is the effort to performance relationship. The second is performance rewards relationship. And the third one is rewards personal goals relationship. So any individual here, he should make a decision based on these probabilities. So motivation is a choice as a result of decision making, and the calculation of probabilities determine whether you will do the behavior or not. For any behavior you have two choices: to do it or not to do it. Based on what? Based on the calculation of the outcomes of the behavior. This is very simply the expectancy theory of motivation. The next theory also is more dynamic, which is the equity theory. According to the equity theory, employees usually compare their effort and rewards with those of others in similar situation. So motivation here is an outcome, or it depends on the outcome of the comparison the individual usually do between himself and somebody else, a friend, a colleague, and a very close friend or very close colleague is the other party in the comparison. Why is that? Because this person you have more information about him. So motivation is an outcome of the comparison between the individual effort and the rewards related to another person effort and reward in similar situation. So one's perception of being treated fairly in social exchanges can influence motivation. If you know that you are treated fairly in your organization, most likely you will do more effort, you will exert more effort, you will be motivated because you know that the organization is fair enough and you will get rewarded based on the effort you put. Also, the equity here exists when employees perceive that the ratios of their input to their outcomes equal to the ratios of another employee. Keep in mind here, we're talking here about a ratio. So the ratio here depends on what? The amount of effort, we'll call it inputs, relative to the amount of outcomes, rewards. And we'll explain these two concepts in more details. So the comparison has different elements. These are the elements of any comparison according to the equity theory. First, the person, you, when you decide to do more effort or not. So the person here is the individual for whom equity or inequity is perceived. Okay, so this is the individual we describing his or her motivation, and this person usually compares himself with somebody else. This is called the comparison other. Any group or persons, we usually select one person used by the person as a reference for comparison regarding the ratio of inputs and outputs. Also, these are the two elements in the comparison, inputs and outcomes. Inputs, the individual characteristics brought by the person to the job. Inputs here, anything you give, anything the person, anything the individual gives it to the organization. What usually people give to their organization? They give it time, they give it effort, they give it experience, they give it qualifications. Anything you do in your workplace, this is a kind of inputs. Output, anything you get, you receive from the organization. What people usually receive from their organization. The kind of outcomes usually takes the form of salaries, reward, incentives, a thank you letters, nice word from your boss, a recognition from the organization. These are all called outcomes. So in the comparison, everybody does what? Consider the amount of inputs related to the amount of outcomes he or she received related to another person inputs and outcomes. So very simply, this is the form of the comparison. Personal A outcomes divided by inputs is compared with another person B, outcomes and inputs. Assume that you are A. So you consider what? The outcomes, what you receive from your organization, divided by your inputs, what you give to it, and you select a very close friend, say B. You consider how much he got from the organization, B outcomes, and how much he gave to the organization, the inputs of B. Assume that if you have a paper and pencil and take this example. Assume that the outcomes you received from your organization as 100 units. 100 units of outcome. and the inputs you give to the organization, and you are A in this comparison is only 50. So here we divide 100 units of outcomes by 50 units of inputs. On the other hand, for your friend B, he got only 50 units of outcomes, and also he gave only 25 units of inputs. Then what will be the result of this comparison? 100 over 50, and your friend 50 over 25. So the comparison here is 100 over 50, 2, 50 over 25, also 2. You didn't get the same amount of reward. You didn't get the same amount of salary. But here you feel what? You feel equity. Why? Because the outcome of the conversion is equal. 100 over 50 equals 2. 50 over 25 also 2. So this, if the outcome of the result of the comparison is equity, equal sign, then you will feel satisfied. I trust this organization. The organization is fair enough. So what you're going to do next time? Next time you'll do what? You may exert more effort, more time, and in advance of that, this will be rewarded because the organization here is fair. So you will be motivated. You will be motivated to exert more effort on time. But assume that these are not the numbers. I will change the 100 units of outcomes. I will make it only 80 instead of 100, and I will leave all the other numbers as they are. So 80, you are A, 80 divided by 50, and your friend 50 divided by 25. Then what will be the sign of this comparison? 80 divided by 50 is less than 50 divided by 25. Are you going to be happy if you expect to receive 100 units of reward, and you got only 80 units? So this will be unfair. So your side is less than your friend's side. So this will be a feeling of inequity, and as a result you will be dissatisfied, and also this will lead to less motivation. So you will not be motivated here because you believe that this organization is unfair. They didn't recognize the effort and the time I gave to my job, to my work, So next time I will be demotivated. Okay, assume the third situation. Instead of getting 100 units of outcomes, you got 120. All the numbers are the same. 120 divided by 50, and your friend's numbers are 50 divided by 25. So the result of the comparison will be greater than. What kind of feeling you may have if you trust that you got more than what you deserve? You got more than what you believe you deserve. What kind of feelings you may have in this situation? According to the theory, this is also lead to unsatisfaction. The normal people in this situation will feel guilty, and also they will feel inequity. They will not be happy. You know why they will not be happy? Because yes, this time, it was in your side. So next time you may get hurt, and you may get less than what you deserve. So people also, in this third, example, people also will feel inequity. So in the case of less than or greater than, this will lead to feeling of inequity. As a result, it will lead to satisfaction, and as a result, people will be demotivated. According to this, the motivation is a result of this process, the comparison process between one's outcomes divided by inputs with somebody else outcomes divided by inputs. Then what you're going to do if you feel inequity, whether it is positive or negative. Positive means the greater than, negative is the less than sign. There are many alternatives people may use in order to reestablish the feeling of equity. So there are many procedures people may use in order to restore equity. First, they may change their inputs. So people may say, okay, next time I will not give the organization such amount of time. So this next time they may reduce the amount of effort, the amount of time, and anything else. So here people, they may say, okay, this I will give the organization what they deserve to take. I'm not going to give them more than what they paid me for. So this is the first alternative, the first behavior people may do, may reduce their inputs, or they may try to increase their outcomes. The individual may complain, may go to the boss, complaining, you gave me this amount of money, no, I deserve more than this. And this may work out. So the manager may change the outcomes, the salary, the bonus, the reward, whatever it is. So they may do something positive, in order to increase their outcomes. Or they may change their attitudes toward the boss, toward the other colleague, toward the organization. If the difference is not such big, they say that, yes, I know that, my friend got more than me. I know because, my friend usually goes to the manager office and tells him jokes, and makes him laugh, So, and this is why there is a social relationship between my boss and my colleague, and they may justify this simple or this small differences in what you expect or what you believe you deserve. Sometimes people do something else. They may change the reference person. They may change the person in the comparison. And instead of comparing yourself with B, you may compare yourself with C, D, or E. You may keep changing the other person in the comparison until you find somebody you feel equity in your comparison with him. You said, okay, as long as D, in the same situation, then I'm fine. I'm not alone in this situation. So sometimes people keep changing the other person in the comparison, and once they find one or two in the same situation, they feel comfortable, and they live with it. Or you may do something else. Some people may change the inputs or the outcomes of the other person, B. You may directly talk to B. You got more than me. So next week, you should spend more hours in the workplace. Next time, you should spend more effort, in the job. Or if the person is mean, he may go to the manager, ask him to reduce the amount of, money, salary, reward, bonus, whatever it is next time. So he may reduce the outcomes of the other person and the comparison. If all of these alternatives, do not work out, so the person may do what? May decide to quit the workplace, to leave, the organization and go anywhere else when he or she can find fairness. These are the different alternatives, the different procedures that people usually do in order to restore equity. Actually, this here we're talking about something bigger called the organizational justice. Organizational justice can simply be defined as the degree to which individuals feel fairly treated at the workplace. The degree to which, the extent to which people feel fairly treated at the workplace. This kind of feeling may be, according to Locke, I will get back to it. He assumed that an individual's conscious goals and intentions are the primary determinants of behavior. So, people's behavior as an outcome of, the goals, the desire to achieve goals and intentions. Once a person starts something, he or she pushes on until a goal is achieved. And this is what we call, if you remember, the three components of motivation. The three components of motivation, one of them is the persistence, and this is, how long the person tries to achieve the goals. So those who have high motivation, they keep working hard until they achieve the goals. The third point is harder goals will result in higher levels of performance. Wait a minute. I will repeat this statement. Harder goals will result in higher levels of performance. Does this contradict something else we mentioned before in the first part of the chapter? Yes, it contradicts something very important. In the David McClelland theory, we talked about those who have high need of achievement. And we mentioned that those who have high need for achievement, they usually prefer what kind of goals? The moderate difficulty goals. Moderate difficulty goals. The statement here says what? Harder goals will result in high levels of performance. The statement until here is not correct. And this is why there is one condition. Read, the rest of the statement. If these goals are accepted by the individual. If these goals are accepted by the individual. What does it mean? It means, yes, the individual accepted the challenge, accepted the harder goals. But harder goals by themselves will not motivate people. Moderate goals may be. Harder goals may motivate people with one condition. The condition is the individual accepted these goals. And finally, here are some key concepts related to the goal setting theory. The first is the definition of the goal setting. The goal setting is the process of establishing goals, of developing goals, of assigning goals to employees or workers. Goal specificity, the degree of quantitative precision of goals. If the goal is measurable and precise, this goal may motivate people better or more than the qualitative goal. If you ask somebody to do his best, then how are we going to measure this? You will not be able to measure the, do your best, your best, how to measure your best. It is not measurable. But if I said that, okay, next semester you should get, 85% of the final grade. 85% of the final grade is very specific, precise goal. You and me will know whether you achieved this goal or not. If you get only 84, you and me will understand that you didn't achieve the goal. If you get 86, then you'll say, okay, congratulations, you did it. The third concept here is the goal difficulty. This is very easy. The level of performance required to achieve the goal. The more the effort you need in order to achieve the goal, the more difficulty the goal will be. The goal intensity, the process of setting the goal or determining how to reach it, commitment to the amount of effort you need, used to achieve the goal. So these are very easy concepts. Look at the characteristics at the bottom of the slide. These are the characteristics of the goals that may motivate people. 7 characteristics. Look at the red letters and read it. SMARTER. 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 For a long time, we described these goals as smart. Later on, we added the E and R. So these are the 7 characteristics. S, specific. Specific, quantitative goals are more motivated than, less specific or unspecific goals. Measurable. The goal itself should be measurable, so we can easily decide whether the person achieved the goal or not. Attainable. When we assign people goal, we should consider their abilities, their skills, and the availability of resources and tools. So the goals should be attainable. Related. Related to what? Related to the other tasks, other activities the individual uses to perform in his workplace. Timed. We should assign a deadline for any goal. We cannot just tell people, okay, produce 50 units, and come back. Then for how much? For how long? You need people to finish or produce the 50 units. It's better to give them a time frame. Do this in an hour, in a week, in a month, whatever it takes. There should be a deadline for any goal to achieve. The deadline itself will push people to work hard. The goal also should be extended. We make it more difficult every time. So if you can produce 10 units per hour, today, tomorrow I may ask you to make it 12. And if you succeed to achieve 12 units per hour, in the third day I may ask you to make it 15. So the goal itself should be extended, getting harder and harder. And the goals should be rewarded. The goals should be rewarded by themselves, once you reach the goal, like, your performance as a student. If you get excellent in a course, the excellence in itself is a reward. You'll be happy, because you got this, outstanding grades. And also, it should be rewarded by others, by the manager. So the manager may tell people, if you reach these goals, you will get this amount of money, you will get, this kind of reward. So these are the 7 characteristics. Once they exist in any goal, this goal will be motivated. People will be highly motivated because of the availability of these characteristics. The last point here is, okay, this is one more details here regarding the goal setting theory. This is a model that describes the goal setting theory and organization. Okay, so the goal characteristics, we talked about 7 different characteristics of goals. Clarity, meaningful, challenging, and the other characteristics. We assume these characteristics will lead to better performance, the performance desired by the organization. And we expect that the organization will reward the performance. Performance will be rewarded in this organization. So people will be rewarded, preferred by the work will be rewarded, but what kind of reward? The reward that the individual or a team, preferred. So this is why, in order to make the reward matching the individual or the team needs and desires. Keep in mind that the relationship between goal characteristics and work performance is moderated by a number of variables, like the individual ability, the level of commitment, and the feedback. When we assign goals to people, we should consider the individual ability, the skills, the ability, the qualifications, the skills, and also the level of commitment. Some people are very committed and loyal to the workplace. We know in advance once we give them a goal, they will do their best in order to achieve it. And also it depends on the availability of feedback. Like those who have high need for achievement, we said that feedback is very important for them. Why? Because they will improve their performance in the future. So here, if we keep providing people with feedback, then next time their performance will be better. These are the dimensions of the goal setting theory of motivation and the psychological contracts. We talked about the psychological contracts before, but does it have any relationship with motivation? Yes, it does. According to the exchange theory, members of an organization, employees, managers, whatever, are usually engaged in reasonably predictable give and take relationship. We call it exchange relationship with each other. The organization gives people salary, working conditions, recognition, rewards, and also people usually give the organization something in turn, like time, effort, qualifications, experience. So there is a give and take relationship between the individual and the organization. This just for example, employees usually give time and effort to the organization, exchange for money, payment. Also management gives pleasant working conditions in exchange for employees' loyalty. So it is a give and take relationship. And this is the main definition excuse me, of the psychological contract. Psychological contract, as we defined it before, is unwritten agreement between the individual and the organization, which specifies what each party expects to give and receive from the other party. As we said, people usually expect to get, pleasant working conditions, salaries, recognition, and they give the organization time, effort, qualifications, experience, and many other things. So these implicit agreements, why it is implicit? Because it is not written, it is unwritten, may take precedence over the written agreement. Once people join the organization for the first time, they have a legal agreement they sign. It is written, a legal agreement. So the psychological contract is not written, it is unwritten, and it is implicit. There is a mutual understanding between the organization and the employee, between the boss and the subordinates. May focus on exchanging involving satisfaction, challenging work, fair treatment, loyalty, and opportunity to be creative. These are the things people usually expect to receive from their organizations. This is the end of chapter 5, the end of the topic of motivation. Next time we will start, one of my colleagues will start another level of analysis. So far we talked about the individual level of analysis, and we mentioned before organization behavior can be studied at the individual, the group, and the entire organization level of analysis. So far we covered the first level, which is the individual. Next time, inshallah, one of my colleagues will talk about a higher level of analysis, which is the group and the team level of analysis. Good luck for all. Thank you.